Good evening and welcome to NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. I'm Josh Finch with NASA's Office of Communications. We're here to discuss NASA's SpaceX Crew-2 mission, the second crew rotation flight of the SpaceX Crew Dragon spacecraft on a Falcon 9 rocket to the International Space Station as a part of NASA's Commercial Crew program. Teams from NASA, SpaceX, and more just completed the flight readiness review for NASA's SpaceX Crew-2 mission, including Crew-1's return scheduled for April 28th. And senior representatives are here to talk more about this important review. I'm joined today by Kathy Leaders, Associate Administrator for Human Exploration and Operations from NASA headquarters, Steve Stitch, Manager, NASA's Commercial Crew Program, Joel Montalbano, Manager, International Space Station Program, NASA's Johnson Space Center, Norm Knight, Deputy Manager, Flight Operations Directorate at Johnson, William Gerstenmaier, Vice President, Build and Flight Reliability at SpaceX, Junichi Sakai, Manager, International Space Station Program at JAXA, Frank DeVena, Manager, International Space Station Program at ESA, and Randy Repchek, Acting Director of Operational Safety for the Federal Aviation Administration. We'll start with opening comments from our presenters and then take media questions. To get your question into the queue, please press *1 on your phone. And with that, we'll go to Kathy.
Wow. I'm going to tell you it was a very moving day. I just sitting in this room, and I told Steve Stitch this, that I was sitting in his chair last year, May 21st, sitting here as we were getting ready for crewed flight. And here we are 11 months later, getting ready for our third crewed flight. It's just really, looking back, it's really, really amazing what both the SpaceX and NASA teams have accomplished. And when you go through all the kind of the key firsts that we've been getting ready and carefully reviewing today, and you think about this is going to be the first time that we've reviewed really two key events in a single flight readiness review. A launch of our next increment mission at the same time as we're getting ready for landing of our first full increment mission. Very, very exciting to be in this operational cadence. And on top of that, it's also the first time that we're really using a reused capsule and first stage. You know, we've been doing that on our cargo vehicles, but now the team's been working through it diligently over the last 11 months since we put it on contract, and here we were today, and we're getting ready to use vehicles that have flown, that have been flight proven. So it's another amazing first for the NASA and SpaceX team. We had our ESA participants and JAXA participants, because guess what? This is our first ESA crew member flying on board, and we're, again, blessed to be able to fly another JAXA crew member, and very proud to be bringing Aki up to meet Soichi. Very, very exciting time for us. Very happy that Tomas on the flight and excited to see him going up. But as you're going through these reviews, you realize that not only is it going to be Aki and Tomas' lives in our hands, it's also Megan's and Shane, who's the commander's, lives. And we have to diligently get ready and be carefully reviewing the data and make sure that we're ready to go fly. So we had full participation by the key NASA folks in the review, very, very, very detailed reporting from SpaceX and the Commercial Crew Program team and the ISS program team, diligently presenting their data. The flight readiness review was very successful. We only had one exception. It needs to be cleared up in the next few days because it's got to get resolved before static fire. And it's involved with LOX loading, and I'll let Mr. Gerstenmaier probably talk about that in a little bit. But I can't tell you how proud I am of the team today. Everybody agreed to proceed towards flight, obviously, with us working to clear that one issue. And it's just a very exciting day for us to go get ready to flight and move one step forward toward our launch date of April 22nd.
And we'll go to Steve.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. Thanks, Josh. Yeah, today was a very exciting day, and it's exciting for the Commercial Crew program to be here, and we're very pleased to fly our first ESA astronaut as well as another crew member from JAXA. Again, it's exciting times. As Kathy said, today the FR was successful. We do have one issue that we'll have to go work through, but we'll press on toward launch. The launch date is April the 22nd. The launch time is 6:11 a.m. Eastern Time. It's a pretty busy time frame down here at Kennedy Space Center. Dragon and Falcon 9 are mated in the hangar. We'll roll out the vehicle tonight to the launch pad a little after midnight and proceed out to the pad. And then we'll get into a couple of critical operations. On Saturday, the plan is to static fire or hot fire the 9 engines on the first stage around that same time, 6:11 a.m. in the morning. And then the following day on Sunday, when the crew comes down, we'll go through and do what we call a dry dress or a dress rehearsal of the whole launch sequence where the crew suits up, goes out to the pad, gets in the vehicle, and practices that whole countdown with the SpaceX and NASA team. It is a very busy time here in April. You know, we had our port relocate earlier, April the 5th, to move the Resilient spacecraft around to get ready for this mission. And then, as I said, we've got the launch coming up on the 22nd, and then the Crew-1, the Resilient spacecraft, will land also. And preliminarily, the first opportunity would be to undock pending weather on 4/28, April the 28th, around 7:05 Eastern Time would be the undock time. Landing at 12:40 Eastern Time that day. It's a very short undock to landing scenario, and the prime site that day would be Tallahassee. You know, the vehicle's been on orbit for a long time. It's been doing great. The last couple of days, what we've done with Resilience is we've actually inspected that vehicle. We used the space station robotic arm to do an inspection, and some of the high-definition cameras on station to look at the thermal protection system. So far, those surveys have gone well. We sit down between the NASA and SpaceX teams and review the data, and all that's going really well. I will say, you know, the FR was great today. It's been a busy time frame, as Kathy said. When I look back a year ago, we were getting ready to fly our first Dragon mission with Bob and Doug. Now we have a vehicle on orbit that we moved and getting ready to come home. We have the Crew-2 vehicle ready to launch, and then, you know, Crew-3 will fly in the October timeframe, will be the bookend for this mission, and the Crew-2 landing will also be in October, so a busy time for Commercial Crew. We're learning a tremendous amount about the vehicles. You know, a Commercial Crew program can take advantage of all the Falcon 9 flights. We learn from each one of those flights. We look at the data and follow that fleet and see how the vehicle performs, and we fold that into our crewed missions to make those missions safer. We also follow the cargo flights as well. The cargo flights give us a tremendous amount of data. If I just look at the recent cargo flight we flew back in the November timeframe, we tested out some new thruster valves, some new batteries, and some things that really help us out as we head to these crewed flights. So it is an exciting time frame for Commercial Crew, and we have, like I said, 4 flights this year. I will say there's probably interest in the next flight for Commercial Crew after this one, which would be the Boeing flight, the OFT-2 flight. You know, April is a busy time frame, and then Joel will talk more about the Soyuz operations. We have Commercial Crew operations. We're really looking for a good window to go fly OFT-2 when it's the right time on the space station and the right time from a launch perspective here with the Atlas Manifest here at KSC. The OFT-2 spacecraft is in good shape. It's almost ready for launch. We're taking a little bit of extra time to do some extra software testing while we have time on the Boeing vehicle, and so we're working hard on that mission as well. And with that, I'll turn it over to Joel.
All right, thank you, Steve. You know, today was a great review, a huge amount of work, and you can tell everybody's excited, everybody's ready to go, and everybody is prepared for this mission. So just awesome to listen to all the teams and to see all the work that's been done to get us ready for where we are today. You know, Commercial Crew flights are critical to continuing and increasing the research and utilization on board ISS, critical to continuing the technology development we need for exploration and for the low Earth orbit commercialization. And so each of these missions brings NASA a step closer to our goals of leaving low Earth orbit and going to the moon and then eventually to Mars. With the launch date of April 22nd being Earth Day, I'm proud to be part of a program that uses this great space station we have to study the Earth in many ways, and how what we do on orbit benefits the people here on Earth that don't get to fly but get to reap the benefits that we have of the International Space Station. This will be the first time we'll have 2 U.S. crewed vehicles docked to the International Space Station. And, just a quick note on current operations. Last Friday, we had an awesome Soyuz launch, and we've been operating almost a week with 10 crew members on board, and all the systems have been fine. We haven't had any issues at all with that, and we're also looking forward to a nice Soyuz landing late tomorrow evening. Once the Soyuz crew is safely on the ground, all the team will focus on the final steps that we need for the Crew-2 launch on April 22nd. So again, just an exciting time, and with that, I'll hand it over to Norm.
Thank you, Joel. Well, this was an important milestone today because this is when the teams come together, NASA, SpaceX, and all those involved, and we put that stamp of approval that it's safe for our astronauts to get on the vehicle and launch, and in this case, with Crew-1, come home safely. We assure crew safety, vehicle safety, and completion of all the mission objectives that are set forth, and that was absolutely accomplished today. And it was, as many have said already, a great review. And that crew focus was very evident today because the commander, Shane Kimbrough, for Crew-2, started the review, which was a great focus on this is what this review is about, this is the importance, human beings are on board, and we have to make sure that we're doing everything we can to get them safely into orbit, do their job, and get them back home safely. Shane passed on his appreciation for the great training that the crew has received, how hard all the people have worked over many, many months getting prepped and ready to go, and also a thanks for everything that was done for Crew-1 and guaranteeing their successful landing as well. Kathy talked a little bit about, you look back over this last year and all the success. Steve and Joel hit on the activities on board the International Space Station, including our Soyuz vehicles. The teams are doing this in the midst of COVID, and we're pulling together. We're not letting that be a barrier. We're overcoming, and it's really a testament to all the teams involved on what you can do when you focus on an objective and you work together to guarantee success. So it's been really great to see that. The crew's excited. They are flying from Houston to KSC tomorrow. They'll arrive here tomorrow. They're in quarantine right now, but they'll go into astronaut crew quarters, into full quarantine, and start their mission prep. So exciting times, and again, just a fantastic review. And with that, I'll turn it over to Bill Gerstenmaier.
Thanks, Norm. It's an honor and privilege to be here today. Again, this is all super exciting, but it's also an incredible responsibility for all of us. Human spaceflight is humbling. It's difficult. We've got to really listen to our hardware, both the data and our real-world lessons learned. They've got to take all those in and understand what we're ready to go do to make sure we fly safely. And spaceflight, and especially human spaceflight, is not tolerant of errors. So this review is a great time for us to stop for a minute, to step back, look at everything, and make sure we're really ready to go fly. And that's what we did today. And as Kathy described, there's one item we still need to do a little more work on. In Texas, we discovered there was a potential loading error, or where we may actually be loading a little extra oxygen in our tanks normally, and we've been doing that throughout our flight history. We reviewed that with the NASA team today, but we didn't have enough time to really go over all the data and look at all the consequences of what that could mean and make sure that it's really right. So to just be extra certain, we took an exception. We'll go work on that over the evening tonight, and tomorrow morning we'll get together as a team again, and we'll go review that and make sure we're really ready to go fly and ready to go do the static fire moving forward. So again, privileged to be here. Outstanding effort by everyone pulling together and working and doing the chance to step back and make sure we're really ready to go fly and go do this next major activity for us. So thanks.
And next we'll go to Junichi Sakai.
Thank you for introducing me. My name is Sakai Junichi, the ISS Program Manager of JAXA. First of all, on behalf of JAXA, I would like to sincerely express my appreciation to the NASA leadership, SpaceX, and all the members who worked so hard for the Crew-2 launch and the Crew-1 return preparation and continuing ISS operation under the tough COVID-19 situation. As reported earlier in this FRR, we have decided to go for the launch and return, just including astronaut Hoshide Akihiko Aki and astronaut Noguchi Soichi are all ready for them. For astronaut Hoshide, this is his third launch and following Space Shuttle Discovery in 2008 and Soyuz spacecraft in 2012. It is a great pleasure not only for me but also for JAXA and Japan. The Japanese astronaut board the operational spacecraft of Crew Dragon twice in a row after astronaut Noguchi. I think this is both by the close relationship and cooperation cultivated between international partners for years and the ISS, especially with NASA. I do believe that astronaut Hoshide will contribute to the Expedition 65 mission and commander and succeed in the mission with his Supreme NASA and ESA colleagues astronauts. In addition, I hope astronaut Noguchi and the other Crew-1 staff same return. I think they are opened a new era of space exploration for the world as the crew member of the first operational commercial spacecraft. I do believe they have both us courage and hope for all of us. I'm looking forward to this launch, and we will prepare everything for the launch preparations. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And now we'll go to Frank DeVinna.
Good evening, everybody. I would like to join my JAXA colleague in thanking all the teams from NASA, SpaceX, but also all our international partners for conducting a great review today. Very good discussions. We are, of course, very proud that Thomas can fly as the first European crew member on a SpaceX vehicle from U.S. soil to the International Space Station. With Thomas and with Crew-1 already we go to 4-person crew on orbit, and as Joel mentioned already, this is great for utilization to have 4 USOS crew members on orbit. We got a great presentation today as well of all the science that's being done on the International Space Station and all the time that we have now available, and this is essential for Europe that we can really execute our scientific program. It's not only our scientific program, also during this flight we will see the launch of the MLM in July with the European robotic arm that will fly to the International Space Station, a program that has been waiting very long to fly, and we are very happy that we will now finally have it on orbit, and that Thomas will also be able to take place in the commissioning of this European robotic arm. In 2019, at the end of 2019, our ministers of ESA in the Space 19 Plus conference have given us a 30% increase in funding for exploration and human spaceflight, and of course the fact that Thomas can now fly, but not only Thomas, but we will have for the first time 3 ESA crew members in a row flying to the ISS, so we will be present on the ISS for a year and a half for the first time since it was conceived in the years 2000, so in 20 years. So this is a great step forward. Thomas will be commander, while Matthias will join him on orbit with the next vehicle. And so that is a great success for Europe. And of course, we will build on this success to try to get even more funding in our Space 22 conference. And as mentioned before, with all these successes, hope that we can also leave low Earth orbit and go further into exploring the rest of the universe with the first step to the moon and to the gateway. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we'll go to Randy Repchik.
All right, thank you. As always, the Federal Aviation Administration is pleased to partner with NASA in its Commercial Crew program. Our job is to ensure that the commercial space operator, SpaceX, meets all federal licensing requirements designed to protect public safety during the launch. We also work very closely with the Space Force's 45th Space Wing in its range safety function. So it's pretty quiet for us. We have no licensing issues at this time, so we're good to go. As we do for all licensed launches, we will have safety inspectors on site to monitor compliance. But otherwise, we look forward to a successful launch. Thanks.
Thank you. And we'll now take time for media questions. As a reminder to press *1 on your phone to get into the queue. And to ensure as many people get a chance to ask a question as possible, please limit your question to one per person. And then also, if I don't, please state your name and affiliation and to whom you're directing your question. And with that, our first question will go to Bill Harwood at CBS News.
Oh, hey, thanks, guys. I guess this is for Gerstenmaier. For Gerst, first of all, welcome back to the panel. It's wonderful to hear from you again. Could you give us a little more details on whatever this exception is you're looking at? I wasn't sure I could really understand what the issue actually is. Thank you very much.
Yeah, what the issue is, we were doing a test in Texas where we load the stage and then we do an integrated stage firing to verify that the rocket is ready to go fly. And when we were doing that loading, we got interrupted because of some weather conditions, so then we changed some of the configuration, and that gave us some insight that we don't typically get, and we got to see that the amount of oxidizer that we had loaded in the tank was a little bit different than what we had analyzed it to be. So we physically got a chance to detect what it was. For the first time, we saw a small difference in loaded oxidizer, and because of that difference, we want to investigate that some more and then look at the consequences of what that could mean to us. This is a configuration we've flown in all our flights, so it's not something new to us, but it's something we discovered, and like we described at the beginning, we really pay attention to these really small things. I think in a normal program, this amount of difference wouldn't matter to anyone, but in our world, we're going to take the extra step, go review it, look at the consequences, what happens worst case, what if is it an indicator of something that's even more serious? We'll have those discussions. We'll share all that data with NASA and make sure that we're really ready to go do what we need to go do for the static fire coming up. Does that help, Bill?
And I think our next question will go to Irene Klotz at Aviation Week.
Thanks. I welcome, echo Bill's welcome to you, Bill Gerstenmaier. It's nice to hear your voice. One quick follow to Bill's question is how much extra liquid oxygen did you find? And a question for Kathy, what's the status of the crew exchange seats for MS-19 and beyond? And are you expecting any issues from the new trade sanctions that the Biden administration is pursuing? Thank you.
I'd say in terms of pounds or gallons or whatever, I would look at it propellant level in the tank, and the propellant level was about 3 to 4 inches different than we had anticipated that it would be in the tank.
I want Gerst's question. No. So Irene, we're still working through our interagency review, and are kind of in the final wickets of it. So and obviously, I think we have strong administration support for maintaining the International Space Station, and so we understand that there's sometimes difficult geopolitical issues out there, but we also, I think the administration also understands the value of the International Space Station as a peaceful bridge sometimes during tough times. So but we're looking forward to final approval and expecting it fairly soon.
Thank you.
Our next question will come from Gina Sinceri at ABC News.
But what is explain the choreography between docking Crew-2 and undocking Crew-1? How complicated is that?
Yeah, I can take that question. So it has been a fairly complicated sequence. We did start that sequence back on Monday, April 5th, when we moved the Crew-1 Resilience Dragon. We moved it. It was on the forward port on the space station. So we did about a 40-minute or so fly around to the zenith port and redocked that. So that freed up that forward port. We really would like the Crew-2 Endeavour spacecraft on that forward port. That set that port up for the zenith port once Crew-1 undocks for cargo mission. So what we'll do is that port, the forward port's all ready to go. We'll launch, and it'll be about a 23-hour rendezvous. Once the Crew-2 vehicle launches, it should arrive at about 5:30 a.m. On April the 23rd, and we'll dock there, and then the crew will spend about 5 days during a handover on station where the Crew-1 crew hands over what's been going on, the safety briefings and so forth for that period of time. And then, we'll pack the cargo in the Crew-1 vehicle and go through we go through a series of reviews. We'll have a Dragon mission management team, an IMMT, an International Space Station mission management team. We'll make sure that the weather's ready to go, and then we'll undock the Crew-1 resilience vehicle, and it does a series of maneuvers, goes below the station, and for that particular opportunity that I talked about, we should land about 7.5 hours or so after undock.
Our next question will come from Marcia Dunn, Associated Press.
Yes, hi. Two quick questions for Bill. For the extra couple inches of liquid oxygen in the tank, is that on all your Falcon 9 rockets to date or just those for NASA? And probably for Steve, I know you're still working the manifest, but what's your no earlier than dates for the Starliner redo test and then the first Starliner crew? Thanks.
It would be for all our rockets, and again, I think we're still studying to see if it's really real and what the actual magnitude, so we need a little bit of time to get that together, but it's on the order of what I described to you, and it's all our rockets.
In terms of the Starliner flights, again, we continue to look at the ISS traffic model and the launch manifest here with the Atlas. We've got this Crew-2 mission coming up, and then we'll undock the Crew-1 mission. Then there'll be a cargo resupply flight that Joel can talk more about, but there's some critical solar arrays that fly up on that in the June time frame. And that's about a 45-day mission or so. So right now the windows that we're kind of looking at are the August-September time frame for OFT2, and then for the crewed flight test, we're looking at that flight being toward the end of the calendar year, in that last quarter of the year. That vehicle is getting ready to go fly as well. So.
Our next question will come from Joe Roulette at The Verge.
Hey, thank you. This is one for Joel. As Steve was saying earlier, Joel, it's definitely a super busy time on the ISS. Is NASA considering any kind of plans to expand the number of ports with an international docking adapter so that the second commercial crew vehicle, Starliner, could dock while there's, say, 2 Dragons on the station? And if not, is that something that would even be possible in the future or good in the future? Thanks.
Hey, Joey, thank you. Good question. We're always looking at ways to be more flexible on board and how we could accommodate more vehicles and how we do all, the utilization research and tech demo, LEOCOM that I talked about earlier. Right now, when we look forward, fast forward a few years to when we get a commercial element on board that I know you're aware we've been working with Axiom Space. That will require us to move the docking port on the node forward to the Node 1 nadir. So we're going to be changing that in the future. At this time, we talk about additional docking ports, but we have to, at this time, just kind of weigh the pros and cons of that. Right now, we're not on a path to go add another docking port, but we do have that movement that I talked about once we get the Axiom commercial module attached to ISS.
Thanks.
And our next question will come from Jeff Faust at Space News.
Yeah, it's a question for Steve Stitch. For the review for this flight, you're using a reused Dragon and a reused Falcon 9 first stage. What sort of differences were in the review? What different things did you look at compared to, say, the Crew-1 mission because of the fact that you are using reused hardware? Thanks.
That's a great question. We had to do an extensive amount of work to look at both the Dragon for reuse and also the F9. We reviewed over 3,000 different products that SpaceX provided us on that vehicle. We had to look at how the structure would perform for an additional flight on both vehicles. We went back and looked at all the requirements to make sure that they were met. We made sure all the hazards on Falcon 9 and Dragon were controlled. And then there were also a number of upgrades, I would say, between the flights. On Dragon in particular, propulsion system was upgraded to eliminate titanium in some locations, and we had to review that. As I said, the battery system is new and improved on the flight. The thrusters have some improvements on those. We had to review those systems. And then SpaceX has made some changes and improvements in their abort system as well for escapes during launch to improve crew safety, and we had to review those. So it was a series of upgrades, I would say, to improve safety, and then also just reuse, having to make sure that the structure, the component lifetime was all within the certification and the qualification of those components. So it took about 10 months of intensive review. Super proud of everybody in the NASA and SpaceX teams that went through that review and worked long hours, sometimes nights and weekends to do that work. But we got through it, and we're in a good posture from the review today.
Our next question is from Stephen Clark at Spaceflight Now.
Hi, thank you. Stephen Clark, Spaceflight Now. Question maybe for Gerst or, probably for Gerst. Can you talk about the launch dates you have available after April 22nd? From an ISS phasing point of view, what days can you launch? And if the launch delays from the 22nd, is it a day-for-day slip in the Crew-1 return, or are you trying to maintain that 5-day crew handover period, or do you have some flexibility there? And that's probably for one of the NASA reps. Thanks.
I can talk about the launch opportunities. This is Steve. We basically have April 22nd and 23rd, so we'll have 2 days that are good from a launch to dock phasing perspective. They would both take about 23 hours or so to get to the ISS. Then we would stand down for 2 days. Those next 2 days are not favorable for phasing. And then we would have the April 26th and 27th. And we would adjust that landing time to preserve that 5 days or so of handover. We have to look at the operations really carefully in terms of the undock times, but we would go ahead and adjust that landing time to preserve that time.
We looked at it a little bit from our standpoint, and we think about 4 days is the minimum that we could space between. We had the 5, and we'll work with NASA to figure out the right timing to get the work done, but it's somewhere under 4 to 5 days. But we might be able to shorten a little bit if we just move the 1 day to the backup day.
Our next question will come from Hanukkah Wettering at Space.com.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. Another one for Gerst, I think. Can you talk a little about the process of refurbishing the Crew Dragon and how it's different from refurbishing a cargo Dragon? Thanks.
One thing that was pretty major that Steve talked about was On the abort system for the Dragon vehicle, we used to have titanium valves in there, and we replaced those with a stainless or Inconel valve, and that was a major change. The other thing we did that was, I think, a big performance improvement for us was the way when we did aborts, the propellant used to flow out of 2 tanks, and it just flowed out of the tanks directly. We put an orifice in one, so it made the mixture or the flow rate out of those 2 tanks a little more favorable. So it gives us the ability to use more propellant in an abort situation. And what that additional propellant does is it allows us to have higher onshore winds and still be able to go ahead and launch. And that gives us a lot more launch probability. So those are some of the things that we added to the vehicle that are more than just a typical kind of refurbishment thing. These were really enhancements above and beyond what you would do in kind of a classic just get the vehicle ready to go fly again and update the heat shield and put things on the back. I think the other thing that's important too is it's really nice having the cargo flights because we had some erosion on the bottom of the heat shield, if you may remember, and we were able to make those changes and fly it on the cargo flight. So we actually got to see that perform during a reentry before we go bring Crew-1 home here with that same modification on their vehicle. So there's a lot of advantages of having the cargo vehicle kind of be a precursor to test new things out before you put it into the crew vehicle.
And our next question will come from Eric Berger at Ars Technica.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for doing this. Question for Steve, maybe. Can you characterize the work that's been done on the Falcon 9 first stage since it landed 5 months ago? You know, were any engines replaced? You know, what kind of refurbishment did that vehicle needed? And maybe for Gerst, if you could talk a little bit about, you know, it's been almost a decade since you were doing the CRS-1 missions, and now here you are doing Crew-1 missions, Crew-2 missions from the other side. I'm just wondering, you know, have things matured? What's the difference in your mind?
I can talk a little bit about the refurbishment of the Falcon 9. There were no engines swapped out on the first stage. We did end up swapping out a couple of the turbine wheels. Just when we looked at those wheels, there were a couple that are a little bit more favorable for us, and so we replaced 2 turbine wheels on those engines. We did a whole bunch of inspections, you know, for our NASA flight. We have a number of inspections that we require, so we went through and did all those inspections of the engines and the vehicle and did those as a normal part of the flow. We did replace one of the landing legs, so there was a little bit of a harder landing on Crew-1 than some of the other flights, and so we had to go in and replace a landing leg, and that was a little bit of it's an operation that SpaceX has done before, but it was a little bit unique. I would say on both the Dragon refurbishment and the Falcon 9 refurbishment, NASA has an office in both those facilities, and we work hand in hand with SpaceX as they go refurbish the vehicle. We have our engineers there present to look at the vehicle, to do the inspections with SpaceX. It's a great partnership on both Dragon and F9.
I think as Kathy said kind of in her opening remarks, right, this has been a pretty amazing time with DM2 and then the Crew-1 launch, and now we're getting ready for Crew-2 and then also the Crew-1 landing. I think the thing that I think about more than anything is that we're still beginning in this process, that we need to not get lulled into thinking that this is fully operational and we're ready to just continue this in an easy manner. This is still very much a learning experience for us. You know, you heard also from the other presenters a little bit, it's been a tremendous advantage for us to fly all the flights that we're flying. We get a chance to see a lot of Falcon 9 flights. We learn a lot about this vehicle. We can also put some changes in those Falcon 9 flights and then see how they actually perform, where you probably wouldn't want to put that level of change into a crew vehicle. You want to fly something on a crew vehicle that's really mature and really ready to go fly. But this allows us to kind of experiment in a way and see what an effective a change is, and then make sure that it's really ready and mature enough to go into a crew vehicle. So I think my takeaway from where I sit right now is that we just got to be really careful. We're still learning. This is still kind of the beginning of how we move forward into this new commercial area and how we move forward. You know, we're looking forward to doing some commercial flights on Inspiration 4 and some things in the fall. Those will be another huge responsibility for us. But right now the focus in front of us is really this Crew-2 launch and this Crew-1 landing and make sure that we do everything we can to make sure those are successful and make sure we didn't forget anything. And that's what the purpose of the review was today and the purpose of our interchange.
Our next question is from Ken Kramer at Space Up Close.
Oh, thank you. And Gerst, it's great to hear your voice, too. Actually, I'd like to follow up a little bit about what you just said about the Inspiration 4 mission. You've actually got, I think, 2 commercial flights coming up with Crew Dragon. How will that impact flying the missions to the ISS? You know, refurbishment, reuse, how will that work? Thanks.
Yeah, we've kind of laid all that out, and we've got the vehicles laid out. The Crew-1 vehicle that comes back will get turned around, and it will potentially be the vehicle that's going to go fly the Inspiration 4 crew. So we've been through one refurbishment campaign, so we have that understood. So we're going to go ahead and make those changes, and that's kind of the plan. Again, we'll do the right thing and make sure that we favor the right customers to give them the right launch times at the right point moving forward. But I think we've got a pretty good plan to do the Inspiration, and then the Axiom flights Axiom flight will probably be next year.
And our next question is from Camden Hall at Talk of Titusville.
Thanks for taking my question. My question is for Kathy about launch morning and the timeline. Could you give us an idea about what time the day will begin for pre-launch activities for the crew? Thanks.
Actually, I think, Norm, you're probably the right person to talk about.
Let me see here.
Here.
So we have
go ahead.
We have launch at I think these are Eastern time. 6:11 is the launch time. So leading up to launch, the crew will wake up around 11:30 the day prior in the evening, late. They've started a sleep shift. Obviously, when they arrive tomorrow, they'll start that sleep shift. It'll culminate to where they wake up at around 11:30 p.m. Just prior to launch day. They'll get into their activities that morning. They'll have their meal shortly thereafter. They get into suit donning about 2 hours after wake up, maybe 3. They'll get briefed. They'll get out to the pad. They'll get strapped into the vehicle. Again, launch is around 6:11. And then they have obviously a full day because, after launch they have on-orbit activities, which include, I believe, a PAO, public affairs session. So you'll actually be able to hear from the crew and how they're doing. And then they'll go to sleep and get prepped for wake up that next day for the critical rendezvous.
Our next question will go to Bill Harwood at CBS News.
Yeah, thanks. And this is for Gerst. It's really a simple one, and I might have just missed this earlier. Is that LOX issue you discussed, is that just on stage 1, or do you have the same issue with stage 2 as well? And secondly, how much fun are you having these days? What's it like on the other side of the pit?
It's only stage 1, and I can talk to you later about the other things.
Our next question is from Stephen Clark at Spaceflight Now.
Hi, thanks for taking another question. Following up on a couple of questions to Gerst earlier, just curious about the manufacturing and production flow for Crew Dragon and Hawthorne. I presume you're building a new vehicle for Crew-3 in the fall. How's the production line humming along? How many spacecraft do you expect to have in your fleet soon? Thanks.
We have a new cargo Dragon that's undergoing manufacturing right now. It's about ready to ship down here fairly soon in the next couple days. So it's in very good shape. And then you're right, the Crew Dragon is sitting right behind it in the clean room. It's also in pretty good shape overall, and it's going to ship down here, I think, sometime in August, I think, is the basic time frame of when it's coming. And again, it's making good progress. I can tell you one thing that's fun is I get a chance to go walk down and walk in the clean room and actually see both of those vehicles and get a chance to see how the hardware's doing and talk to the folks that are working on the hardware to get it ready to go fly. And that's a special thing to be around the actual spacecraft that are going to do these missions.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out why Gerst is looking younger and I'm looking older. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
We have time for just a few more questions, and our next will go to Gina Sinceri at ABC News.
And Bob splashed down. It turned in kind of a circus there in the Gulf of Mexico. What are you going to do to prevent this from happening for Crew-2, or for Crew-1, I'm sorry?
We have worked extensively with the U.S. Coast Guard to have many more ships on station to patrol that area and make sure that we don't have the number of boats in the area that we had before. We have a plan for each of the landing sites. We've tabletopped that and rehearsed that with the Coast Guard, and so we don't anticipate having that problem again.
And our next question will come from Irene Klotz at Aviation Week.
Thanks. Bill, following up on what you said about this being early in the program, are you comfortable with non-professional astronauts flying this early?
Yeah, I think if you look back, I think we really designed the vehicle to be a pretty autonomous vehicle from the very beginning. And we're gaining experience to see where we need to make changes and things move forward. But I think this is about the right time to start bringing some commercial folks in and some private astronauts in.
And our final question will come from Joe Roulette at The Verge.
Hey, thanks. This one's for Randy and Kathy. Did SpaceX's SN8 license violation in December prompt any changes or increases to the compliance monitoring for SpaceX's other missions like this one, like Crew-2? Thanks.
Yeah, this is Randy Repchak. No, not really. I mean, so we've, this is a different. Let me put this: we are consistent how we license and do inspections, and so we're consistent across the board. And and once again, the Falcon really wasn't a factor in the SN8 launch.
Thanks to everyone for joining us. I'll turn it over to Kathy Lieders for some final comments before we wrap.
So once again, I mean, we've all, I think, said many times what a great day it was, what a thorough review. I think you've also heard many times through the conversation how important it is for us to continue to stay vigilant, and we will. We, along with our SpaceX partners, and, you've heard Mr. Gerstenmaier also talk about the fact that they on their side will be vigilant also, and so we will continue this partnership between NASA and SpaceX, and we'll continue to stay focused on doing the right things to fly our crews. And so I really appreciate you guys tying in tonight and following along, and the team's going to carefully resolve the one issue we had and continue to go through the next steps, which include getting ready for static fire, obviously going through all the final issues that we have, getting ready for our launch readiness review on Tuesday, or very, very early in the morning on Tuesday, and then continuing, as you all know, to watch the weather to find out what's the right day for us to go fly. But very, very proud of the joint NASA and SpaceX team today. Thank you.
And that's going to wrap things up for us here. NASA's SpaceX Crew-2 mission is targeting launch to the International Space Station on Earth Day, April 22nd at 6:11 a.m. Eastern from Launch Complex 39A at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. We'll begin our live coverage at 2 a.m. and continue the broadcast through docking, hatch opening, and the welcome ceremony on April 23rd. Our next event for this mission is tomorrow, Friday, April 16th. You can watch on NASA television, the NASA app, and NASA's website at about 1 p.m. when the crew arrives to Kennedy Space Center. We'll have more on this important mission to come, so follow us along at nasa.gov/commercial crew. Thank you, and goodbye.